So I want to say to all of you, Toyo Teng. My family's from Ghana, West Africa, and so there's a long-standing tradition that I grew up with, that on Saturday morning, like today, the women would gather together. So when we come from all over, and I just never forget being really young, maybe starting at 5 years old, just starting to be aware of the women showing up, and they all dress so beautifully, and each one would come in and they say to one another, Toyo Teng. You're here, you're welcome, you're seen. And in response, he would say, Oyo Jaba. Do you want to try that? Toyo Teng. Toyo Teng. And then Oyo Jaba. Oyo Jaba. So you're welcome here. Thank you for being here. It's a privilege to be here speaking with you today, especially on the healing power of beauty. So in another part of the world, there's a refugee camp in Cambodia. And it's a place where mothers would come with their children when they were displaced from their villages, recovering from atrocities that sometimes are even too horrible to even put into words. And so the women would gather together in these refugee camps. And the women and the men who worked in these camps, they noticed that the women were so depressed, to the point where they weren't even taking care of their children anymore. They were just so beaten down, both internally and externally, by what had happened to them, that they had completely shut down and lost their will to live. And so in a desire to help these women, they brought people from all over the world, mental health professionals from Harvard, different practitioners and doctors trying to help these women to recover so that they can again give to their children, give to their community, and ultimately give to the world. But nothing was working. And then there was a woman, a very wise woman who worked on the camp, and what she realized that the women need actually fits in my pocket. These women's lives were changed by a bottle of nail polish. So they took these women and they gave them steam baths, so they could have a bath, fresh towels, and they'd give them literally bottles of nail polish, not on their face. And the women were broken because they realized that all they wanted was to feel beautiful again, to feel like a woman again, to take back their power, to be fully who they are. And so that is one of the examples of the healing power of beauty. You know, it's like we can have so many different views as to what beauty represents in society and the different images that we see out in the world. But ultimately, beauty is a real powerful elixir, and it does have the capacity and the capability to heal. So to tell you a little bit about my journey and how beauty broke me open, years back, I had worked in a ministry, actually. And so I was working in the community, doing a lot of work. You know, it was in the time of Hurricane Mitch and all these different national disasters that were happening. And so I'd go out and I would, you know, gather supplies and help people to recover and rebuild from different devastations. And then I also worked with children and worked in helping them with expressive arts and seeing that as an act of worship and its self-expression. So I was doing all this really great work, but then at the same time I felt like there was something more. There was something more that I was meant to be doing. I was ready for that next elevation, the spiritual elevation as to what I was meant to be doing on this planet. So I went into that soul-searching time. How many can relate to that? Right? We're just like, okay, this isn't enough. I don't know what it is. I call it the point of no return, PONR, where it's like, I can't go back to where I was before. I don't quite know where I'm going, but I know I can't go back. So I really went into this exploration time, and like working in ministry, it's like I was always around all these ministers and healers, and I would ask them like, what's my purpose? What do you think I should be doing? And they're like, what you're doing now. But it wasn't enough. So I finally got quiet. And like what Dr. Hewitt was talking about, just getting that divine download, coming in and going out. And I asked myself the question, what do I love? And when I got really honest about it, I love clothes. I love fashion. I love beauty. I love makeup. And so I just started to explore that. And long story short, I eventually left ministry to become a fashion stylist. And people were like, well, that makes no sense. You're going from such deep work to suddenly doing something that people perceived as shallow. But I tell you, in that encounter with people, just like with those women in Cambodia, I learned the healing power of beauty. How in in studying it too, it's like they talk about the primates who like pick at each other, or how we as girlfriends like brush the hair back, or smooth it out for one another, or put the little lint off our sweaters, that it turns on these receptors in our brain. We have this instinctual desire to connect in this way. And so in my experience of now working so closely with women and even men in the beauty field, I just found that this deep connection that I've been longing for was happening because there was such vulnerability. I mean, you know, when you go to get your makeup done or your hair done, you're sitting in your chair, it's like you're putting your life in this person's hands, right? And so like there's this part of us, it's like, please don't mess up. And I found that was a lot of times the whole thing was like getting people to trust me. And really starting to, just like, you know, like your beautician becomes your best friend, right? You tell them all your secrets. So I started to really get to connect with people on a deeper level. And in that space, my spiritual development really grew. That's where my intuition ended. Like suddenly I could sense when something was going on with somebody. And also the ability to pick up on the energy. Because it was working in such proximity and there was just such this connection that was happening. And I just really wanted to go deeper. And so in that process, I really started to get into holistic medicine. So I became an aromatherapist and started my own skincare line and started doing all these different things. And it came from something that at first seemed so shallow. So the thing about makeup and, you know, personal adornment is it goes back thousands of years. It can be traced back to, I think, 6,000 years at this point. The earliest cave and, you know, markings showed, you know, different adornment, different things that people were doing with their hair. Or when you look at the pictures of ancient Egypt, it's like they invented the smoky eye, or that little wing thing, you know, going on, right? It's like that's where we learned it. And so, yeah, what can be perceived as shallow, again, it's very instinctual. There's a part of us that longs to give honor to what we've been given. And it's part of us that recognizes that we are all ambassadors of the divine. That's ultimately what it comes down to, is that recognizing that I come here with a message. I've come here with a purpose, right? We talked about finding our purpose and owning our purpose. And this is the encasement of it. So how will I show up? And so in my work in the beauty world, that was the constant dialogue. How will I show up to this thing that I committed to? And so it's really interesting because so I have 2 children, and one's 10 and one's 6. And so we always teach about, you know, for out and here, lose me, who to look for if you're in trouble. You know, or, you know, this is a safe person. This is a person where, you know, you can trust your instincts if you don't quite feel right. And so it really made me more aware of the how I was showing up. Because people are hurting in the world or people are lost. And when we say we want to help, it's like, am I somebody that can be pointed out in the crowd like, I can trust her, that she seems safe? And not to place it all on the external, but the external does come into play. So in part of my studies, I study Ayurvedic medicine. And there are 3 different aspects of beauty. So there's the inner beauty, you know, it's like our own personal alignment, speaking our truth, that aspect of it. And then there's the outer beauty, which is really about honoring the body. They have these beautiful personal massages that you give yourself from head to toe. It's just honoring, again, the information that you've been given. And then there's another aspect of beauty, which I refer to the magic of beauty, where there's like this alignment when everything comes together. Where my insides match my outsides, and it's all just in perfect alignment and perspective. And so it's in finding that magic where everything comes together. So a lot of us, we come from a long way. You know, it's like we all have our personal journey that has led us to where we're sitting today. We all have a story to share. And so part of honoring that is the beauty that we bring to the situations. It's like oftentimes we are somebody's symbol of hope. You know, in the recovery movement, they have a popular saying, suit up and show up. So it's like the moment you have that awakening, right? We're here about the awakening. So awakening that there's more to my life that I've been like resolving myself to. Like stepping out of the background of our own lives, numbing out and being like, no, I have something to say. I have a part to play in this world. So in that moment of awakening and recovery, they talk about suiting up and showing up. On the days you feel like it and on the days you don't. And what I love about that movement, it's all about giving. So it's not like the moment you get an insight, you take it for yourself and you go on with your life. It's like the moment you get it, you give. I think a lot of times what this satisfaction comes from in life is that we're designed to give. So when we're constantly taking, then it's like, it doesn't feel right. because we only get to receive. And so part of that suiting up and showing up, no matter what, that is part of where beauty comes into play. And when you think about the tragedies that happen in life, as a nation, we've had so many different experiences like Sandy Hook and Columbine and the Boston Marathon, all these different things. And the thing that's really amazing about it is that we return to that moment of devastation. We return to that place of impact, and what do we bring? Flowers and candles and teddy bears, because it's that instinctual realization that beauty heals, that we won't let that devastation have the final say, that we're bringing beauty to that, recognizing its healing. And the same thing, again, returning to all of us having a personal message to share, is that we are somebody's sign of hope. Again, we all have a journey that we've gone through. And there's nothing like being able to tell somebody, to look them in the eye and say, I know what you've been through. I've been there too. And meet them where they're at and show them their future. As kids, we always talk about, what do you want to do when you grow up? Growing up. This is grown up, It's like what they're saying, we are it. So again, it's like when we reach back, when we receive, when we give, this is part of it. This is us suiting up and showing up and bringing beauty. And there's so many different aspects of beauty, right? We go into nature. How many other nature lovers are there out there? We love to go to the beach and see the roaring of the waves, and go into the forest and see the tall trees, or rose garden and see the roses. And what I love about nature, it's just a reminder of who we are in the grand scheme of life as well. Just the way that the flowers budding open, that's me. I'm that rose. That tall oak tree that stands, and even in the wintertime that loses all its leaves and still stands, that's me. I'm that oak tree. That's you. You're that oak tree. The crashing of the waves that come in or wash away the sediments and bring in the fresh ground, that's you. You're the wave. So it's recognizing that the beauty that we see in the world, it's all just a mirror. That's what we're really seeing. And saying that, yes, there's beauty outside, but there's also beauty within. That we each have a part to play. That we each are a contribution to that beautiful field of flowers. So one of my favorite stories is about these two pots. Two big, beautiful vases that this master craftsman made. He tenderly crafted them on the potter's wheel, and when they were baked and dried, just took the time to just draw the most intricate designs on both the pots. So they were these two beautiful, tall, standing pots. And so over time, life happens, right? In one of the pots, it got cracks in it. It got bumped against, knocked over, so it had little chips, and little, cracks and things like that. And the other pot still stood so beautifully, so perfectly. And then the one with all the cracks and the chips would look at the other vase and say, gosh, I wish I looked like that. I used to, but then, life bumped me and knocked me over and all these different things. And so the master potter would take the two pots, they had little handles on the top, and would take them to the river and fill them both up to full and would walk them back to the house every day. And he would take the two pots and he would fill them up with water and walk them back to the house, but the one with the cracks, though, it kept losing the water. The water would seep through the cracks and the chips to the point where by the time the master potter got home, there was no water left in the vase. So he would use the other one that was full and use it to make his dinners and to take care of the household, but the other pot just sat there and was empty. It didn't feel like it had anything to give because all its water had seeped out. And so the one that stood so perfect, it just was a constant reminder of this pot's feeling of inadequacy. And so every day, the master potter would take both the pots, fill them up, bring them back. One was empty, one was full. And one day, finally, the chip pot asked the potter, why do you even take me on this journey? You take me, you fill me with the water, and we get back home and I'm empty. I'm not as beautiful as the other pot. I have all these chips and all these cracks. Why do you even bother with me? And then the next day, the master potter took the same pots, filled them up, and as he walked home, he said, look at the flowers along your side. The water that's released from you, feeds the flowers. So you do have a purpose. You're just as important, if not more, because of the beauty that you spread, even with your chips and your cracks and your bumps. So I think we can all relate to that. Those feelings of moments why me? who am I? You know, I've been bumped by life. I've been chipped, I've been cracked. I'm still here, you know, I'll show up, wherever you want to take me. But we don't always get to see the beauty, even in the midst of our, what feel like inadequacies that are happening. So, not in like, probably the next 3 months will be the anniversary of my mom's passing away. And it's hard to believe it's almost been 20 years. And recently I got to hang out with my aunt, who I hadn't seen since I was 12 years old. And so I showed up to one of those, you know, African women events, and I'm in the room with all the other women. And my aunt walks in, and she walked right up to me. And I'm like, oh, how did you know it was me? She's like, you look just like your mother. How would I not know you? You know, I could spot you out of the room, out of all these other people. You know, so again, we are all descendants of the divine. And so we stand out in the crowd. And another experience that happened that really touched my heart recently is I have a new friend. And she knows that I have 2 children, but she's never met them. And so I was in the store with another friend one day, and my daughter loves to play in the window dressings, you know, just to make sure she doesn't knock over the mannequins. And so my new friend came walking in, and she's like, oh, she's like, I knew I'd see you here. And I'm like, how'd you know that? She's like, I saw your daughter in the window. She's like, she looked just like you. So I knew if your daughter was here, that you must be here. You know? So again, going back to that sign of hope, we are that sign of hope. It's like if I see you, then I see what else is possible. So again, the beauty that we bring to situations, to life, the beacons of hope that we are to one another. It's recognizing that our beauty has a purpose. Our beauty gives hope to somebody else. And what I would love to do is, somebody read this to me recently, and many of you I'm sure have heard it. It's that Marianne Williamson quote, that famous one. But it really touched my heart, and I would love to share it with you today. So Marianne writes, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant and gorgeous, talented and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small doesn't serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We were born to manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconditionally give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So thank you so much for this time together with you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mina. Love your really inspirational talk, especially the story of the pot. It brought tears to my eyes. Did it made me verklempt. So now is the time for a little Q&A. We have about 10 minutes of Q&A time. And please feel free to ask Mina any questions that you might have, and she can help answer those questions for you. Do we have a first question ready?
Beauty tips can be included.
Ooh, beauty tips, nice. Great, thank you.
Could you tell us more about the program in India, about the nail polish? That really touched that.
Yeah, so I actually first read about it in the Huffington Post. So you can, if you Google the Huffington Post, you can read more about it. So yeah, so that's a program that they now have for the women. I don't know the exact name of the camp, but the director talked about how, as part of the healing process, the women gathering together, you know, and being together, and even the focusing on doing the beauty act, it's like then they would start to talk with one another, and it really helped to build community. So yeah, it's a really beautiful program. Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah. I know now that I'll never paint my nails the same again after hearing that story. Yes, hi. Yeah.
How did you handle the change with your peers and your family going from ministry, which they thought was a very worthwhile endeavor, and going into beauty. What was that like for you, and how did you handle it?
You know, that's a great question. It really caught me by surprise because I've had numerous transitions since then, and that transition was really, prevalent to me because it taught me that the people that you think you could count on to support you aren't always the people that do. And what I've learned is that's actually part of the process. It's like people, they don't see you, they see you the way they need to see you, the way that you fit into their ecosystem, right? So how dare we upset the system? So what I really had to learn to do was not to share things so openly. And not in a way of discounting them and their thoughts, but it was so new and so young and so tender and precious to me. And just like having a newborn baby, you don't pass your baby around to everybody. It's like you can trust your baby with a select few who know how to handle it. So I just, knew that I couldn't tell everything to everybody. But now when they see my work in magazines and things like that, it's just kind of like, I didn't want to say I'm trying to be spiritual. Yeah. Yes.
It's actually a beauty question.
Yeah.
You obviously look very gorgeous, and I would love to present myself in that way, but time can be an issue. So I was wondering if you have any tips for looking beautiful in a shorter amount of preparation
I found works well is actually planning the outfit the night before really helps, especially like having young kids. It's like I gotta be ready to go, and somebody spills the cereal all over the floor, so I lost that extra 10 minutes. So, and then really, and then I think like makeup wise and everything, I would say focus on what you want to accentuate, like what's your favorite feature, and then give more attention to that. And then everything else can be built around it. And so it's just like even with makeup, I personally don't have a ton of makeup. I just have the few things that I know work for me. Get the system down, and then again at night, just the night before, if I know I want to give special attention to what I'm wearing, do it before, because otherwise when I'm not doing this, I'm in yoga sweats and a t-shirt. So. And big earrings. So a little shout out to beauty. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, hi, I'm Deborah Downey. I just love what you had to say, and I wanted to know what you do. Are you coaching people for their beauty, or are you a consultant? How do you work with people? I assume you do something with this healing.
Yeah, definitely. So I do have a holistic counseling practice, and then I also actually still work in the beauty industry. So I work on photo shoots for magazines, and I work on commercials. So it's like I balance those two worlds. And the thing that I really learned is like you can have whatever you want, and I made it okay, so it's okay to do both.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
In Ghana, when on Saturday morning,
Yeah.
when the women would meet, what would go on in these meetings and their purpose and, what went on?
Yeah, definitely a lot of cooking, a lot of eating, and then also just talking about, what's present to people, it's just like whatever issues, like especially with children or relationships or, career, different things. It was just a place to come together, and it was really beautiful because everybody could just share their wisdom without any apology. It's like they would share from the deepest part of who they were, and just really trusting in that intuitive guidance. And just like today, it's just having a safe place to explore and see what's next. And so,
That's really fantastic.
yeah, and we could all do that, You start your own. Yeah. Yes, hi.
Hi, I'm Kate.
Hi, Katie.
Do you have any tips for us about how to choose a person's stylist?
Yeah, so somebody whose style that you appreciate. It's kind of like when you see somebody who has a great haircut and you're like, who's your stylist? That kind of thing. And so the stylists who work one-on-one, they oftentimes have websites and they'll have examples of their work. And then also somebody who's going to be able to relate to your everyday life. Because somebody who's an executive stylist, is not, I would say, the ideal match for somebody who's a stay-at-home mom who just wants to get out of the yoga pants and into something a little more. So somebody who can understand and relate to your lifestyle, I think, is a big part of it, because ultimately it is about how you want to show up to your life, because that's the reality of it, right? So, yeah, of course. Yeah, hi.
Do you have any tips of how to pick out colors in our clothing that's flattering for our skin tone, hair, that kind of in general?
Yeah, definitely. So doing like color theory, one of the key ways is when you hold a color up to you, if it makes your teeth look whiter and your eyes look brighter, that's a key way to tell that it's a good color for you. Yeah. And natural light is your friend. Like, I love that, because so much of my work, a lot of times I'll come into a new situation and they have this room set up for me, or, you know, like, oh, you can work in like the bathroom or whatever. And it's like, I always go for the window. Like, putting on makeup, whatever, it's a great analogy of life. It's like your lighting, the light that you're looking at the situation with determines everything. So a good window, full-length mirror, hold it up. Yeah. Yes, hi.
I'm wondering if you have a birthmark on your arm or if it's a tattoo. And I'm asking that because I have a birthmark that through my kind of childhood I had a lot of insecurity around and like a lot of lack of confidence. And you could see it on my outside. And when I started to, and so I'm really relating with what you say, like when I started to get in touch with my inner beauty, I started to see it on the outside, and it was this like spiral effect. And now it's like, you know, I have a lot of, you know, pure confidence in myself, and I don't even think about it, where I used to be like hyper conscious on my leg, and I would just like feel it burning, like the heat of my, you know, of that lack of confidence and where my birthmark is. And so I've been thinking about that, and I don't know, I can't tell from here.
Oh yeah, it's just a tattoo.
It's a tattoo. Okay, cool.
I know. When I did it, my husband's like, "Oh, so you're not going to get a real job ever again?" I'm like, no. But that was a big declarative statement too, because I very much consider myself a very spiritual person, and no matter what I do, I realize everything we do is a ministry. You know, whatever intention we bring to it, and so to have tattoos and feel like that's just a part of my self-expression, you know, it's like not feeling the need to hide it. So I understand from that sense, because it's like sometimes I'm like, do I hide it? And I'm like, but no, it's me, and actually I chose it, so I shouldn't hide it. I paid a lot of money for it.
And just want to say thank you so much. We have time for one quick question. One last question.
What's a great next step for each of us to find our own inner beauty?
So I would say we're really quick to focus on the thing that we don't like about ourselves. And so I feel like to bless ourselves, you know, just to bless the beauty that we've been given. You know, focus on the positive, because that saying, you know, it's like what you focus on does grow. And it's so true. That's where it all starts. You know, people that sit in my chair, you know, they want to start with, well, I don't like my eyes, I don't like my hips. I'm like, well, tell me what you do like. Let's start there. And from there, then things would really grow. So just every time we look in the mirror, you know, we say, like, I love myself, but it's nothing to say, I bless you. You know, you're beautiful. So I think that's a great next step.